This is a meeting of our Council's Health and Human Services Committee. I'm joined by my colleagues, Councilmember Rice and Council Vice President Glass. We are here meeting with representatives from the Department of Health and Human Services. It's good to see you, Ms. Buckland. Thank you for being here in person. And in the virtual world is Patrick. So thank you so much for joining us today. So I will turn it over to the team to kind of set the stage and walk us through the packet. And I believe, Ms. Clements, I'm turning it over to you. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, council members, and good morning to everyone. So here we have two items up for discussion. The first is the special appropriation to the DHHS budget food staples program for $8.15 million, and we'll also be discussing the service consolidation hubs. So in your packet, you'll find some background on the food security funding, really talking about it since COVID began and the appropriations that the council has approved since that time. For the food staples program, this request is for the $8.15 million. The FY23 budgeted amount was $4.25 million, specifically $4 million that went directly to Capital Area Food Bank and MANA to go directly to food assistant providers. So during the FY23 HHS committee work session, you all discussed that the $4 million was lower than previous supplemental appropriations, which causes some uncertainty in the program. Over the past years, because of COVID, the food security funding has been supported through ARPA funding and CARES funding, and trying for us to get Fema reimbursement for some of the general funds that we spent as well. And so the DHHS and the executive staff will kind of detail on that a little bit, and there's also information in your packet. So what we are looking forward to hearing more is more about the sustainability about the $8 million and how this funding will be utilized over the rest of the year. The current $4 million will be expended by $15 million, by November 15th, according to the department. So the funding is needed as soon as possible to continue to provide food services for our community providers. There will also be an update on the service consolidation hubs. Since, I believe it's June of 2020, the service consolidation hubs have been, has grown over the years. Right now, we still currently have the 8 hubs, and this model was pioneered, of course, by the Black Rock Up-County Hub. And so there's data in the packet that shows the service data, the individuals that come, and the pounds of food served. On average, for the FY22 data, there are approximately 1.6 children per household served by hubs, and approximately 50% of the households included a senior. In our fourth quarter data, you'll really see there was a peak demand in food for individuals and household so far in the calendar year. So, and also with the FY23 funds, there was probably a double of funding in the case management, and you'll see that reflected in the referrals that the hubs have been able to manage. Just in comparison of the fourth quarter, which is April and June of FY22 to the first quarter of this year, we've been able to almost double the amount of referrals, which is wonderful. So I will end my comments with that and give it back to you, Chair.
Thank you. Ms. Buckland, did you want to make some comments?
Just very briefly, thank you for the opportunity to talk about this and for considering the special appropriation. Obviously, this is something that came up in a big way during COVID, and the denouement of COVID does not get us back to pre-COVID levels, right? That's at a different place. And so part of what you see in the course of all of this is figuring out what that long-term engagement looks like. Obviously, the new office coming online. At some point, there's a bit of a handoff from us to that new office. But in the meantime, it's in our hands, and we are trying to be good stewards of it. So there's a lot of information in the packet, and we are available to answer any particular questions that you have.
Thank you. So I'll just make a couple of comments. I think all of us have visited most, if not all, of the consolidated hubs, and that is one of the silver linings from the beginning of the pandemic, this sort of evolution and paradigm shift in service delivery, which I think expands the reach of HHS in a really significant way and has created another layer of communication vis-a-vis the public to residents in need. which has been tremendously helpful and successful. So, and as you noted, Ms. Buckland, and all of us have seen and experienced, the need has not gone away. If anything, it has expanded. And so anything that we can do to help shore up our social safety net is obviously a wise and important investment. Could you talk a little bit about the Fema reimbursement? Because I know that was a source of lots of ongoing debate and discussion in the not too recent past, and just where we are with all of that.
With respect to the FEMA reimbursement, I think two things are both true. One is that the FEMA reimbursement process is arduous, maybe is a gentle term, highly detailed, and also continuing to evolve. So the basic process, we send information in to our main point of contact. That person does an initial review and provides us feedback about what else you might need. So in the case of the food, part of what you see in the packet is that we actually have provided that whole first round of information, but what they've come back for is actually a breakdown by day, which is a really non-trivial exercise, and not something I would have assumed from the get-go that they were going to be looking for, right? That wasn't the first thing that we sent them. So we are continuing to engage in that process. As you well know, there are some deadlines coming up for the reimbursement percentage that the county is eligible for. We are well aware of that shift in the percentages and are working against that deadline. So there's a lot of effort going on in the background, but like I said, it is iterative, and what inevitably is happening is that feedback that we're getting is asking for considerably more detail than I would have assumed we would have been asked for. But it is what it is, and we will do what is required.
Thank you. Just a couple more questions, and I guess, Mr. Campbell, this question is for you. So I know that the coordination among the consolidated hubs is strong, but could you talk a little bit about that referral process and what we're doing to make sure that there is connectivity? Because at the height of the hub, what we were seeing were families, understandably, the same families often going to multiple hubs to be able to, as I would as well, get as many supplies as possible for their families. And I know there has been a consolidated effort to better strategize and coordinate. If you could talk a little bit about that, we'd appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you, Council President. A couple things we did going into this, really preparing for this year, was one, we wanted to change the way we did our model. You know, COVID forced our hand in having to do these grab-and-go type of events. You know, the great thing about that, right, the idea is it kept families safe, but the problem was it didn't give us the opportunity to learn about the families we were serving. So a family of 8 and a family of 4 got the same box. So because of that, that same family 8 would have to go maybe 2 or 3 sites to get a sufficient amount of food. Beginning in January this year, we began working with the hubs to start converting them over to choice pantries. It's a simple idea. If you get them out of the car, it gets an opportunity to learn who they are, what their specific food needs are, what size families they have, so we can adjust it. So when you look at the data that we have, what's interesting is you'll see there's a drop in families, but a similar amount of food still going out. And moreover, we believe we're reducing food waste by also families being able to go in there. They pick what food they want, pick what food they desire. But the other important aspect of it is getting them out of the vehicles. It gives the opportunity for our case managers to actually engage with them. Now, our numbers being almost double with the case management numbers is not as significant as what we'll see in a few months, because we had to wait for Catholic Charities to hire the additional case managers. So we were actually operating for most of this quarter with the same amount of case managers we had last year, and yet we still nearly doubled it. My expectation is we should see through the year increasing amounts of case management engagement. But I think one of the key lessons we learned from shifting to this choice pantry model, we learned it from Interfaith. One of the clients that have been going there for over 2 years in line switched to the choice model. They make an appointment, they showed up, and they said, you know, I've been going here for 2 years and I never realized there was a clothing center. And that little subtle thing sounds really small, but it also opens up all kinds of other opportunities. We believe this is the model that potentially helps us bring people more food security. It gives us that opportunity to have conversations. Through that very process, we have been engaging additional HHS organizations like Aging and Disability, our Community Action Agency, to be on site, along with partners like WorkSource. And so we think this is the model that potentially gives us that chance to really try to make that significant change in people's lives. More often than not, I think of food as, we have to feed people, but giving food doesn't provide food security. It's those other human services programs that we're connecting them to that has the potential to give them food security.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I see Councilmember Rice has his button pressed.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And I just wanted to chime in on a couple items that I think are of importance when we talk about the future sustainability when it comes to supporting our efforts to combat food insecurity here in the county. I recently attended the White House conference on hunger, nutrition, and health. And from there were some key takeaways. And one of them was that the federal government and the president does believe that hunger is a solvable issue, as many advocates, including us here in Montgomery County, have said for so long. There's a renewed emphasis on trying to make sure that local governments are supported in their efforts. And so while I do acknowledge and certainly understand that there is a lot of angst around what the funding mechanisms may be, there's been lots of talk around grants to help support local jurisdictions to do what we're doing. In fact, a very unique model that is now, I think, going to be a model for the nation is what the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments has done, which is create the Farm Committee and deals with food and agriculture and talking about food sustainability as well as ensuring that hunger solutions are creative and sustainable and ultimately successful in stamping out hunger and food insecurity in our communities. And so there's a lot of that work that's going on that we are far ahead of the game in. And so when it comes to our Food Security Council, the new director position that I know has just been posted, as well as the other two positions, it's hopeful that from that aspect, we'll see some continued effort along that track. But it is something that, again, as we advised the executive leadership team on, we have to be active and engaged when it comes to applying for these grants. We are one of the only jurisdictions that's uniquely positioned to be able to do this work right now. Others are just trying to start up the work that we're doing, especially when it comes to our service consolidation hubs. They fall right in the wheelhouse with some of the things that the president, as well as some of the congressional members that were there at the conference, mentioned. And so from that standpoint, I think we find ourselves uniquely poised to be able to ensure that we're not just using our local taxpayer dollars, but we're also using those tax dollars that go from our residents to the federal government to help support these efforts. So just wanted to highlight that as some of the takeaways from the White House Hunger Summit, and really think that, again, where we find ourselves is a very great place when it comes to meeting the needs of our constituents. But just wanted to say kudos. Our service hubs have been absolutely amazing. Gracie Rivera Oven, who is dynamo in the Up County Service Hub, the first one that we started here in this county, have done tremendous work. And just wanted to say that, again, I think it is certainly something that until we can solve hunger, it needs to be a part of our makeup moving forward. It has certainly done so much beyond just hunger in terms of connecting people with resources that are important for the community. So thank you, Mr. President, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, well said. Council Vice President Glass.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for the presentation. I was looking through the packet, and the numbers are staggering, quite frankly. The amount of work that has been done and the need that continues to exist nearly 2.5 years or so since the pandemic started. And over the last fiscal year, from the beginning of the first quarter in July of 2021 through the fourth quarter ending in June of 2022, there's been a 35% increase in households getting assistance at the hubs, an 18% increase in children receiving assistance, and a 32% increase in individuals. And that's what the need is now. And I thought that as time was going on and services were being expanded and provided, that some of the need would subside. but clearly that is not the case. And yeah, Ms. Buckland.
I just want to highlight something that that Patrick had said, which was that don't be surprised to see those numbers served go down, but the pounds of food staying relatively constant. Part of what, and this I think Council President Albornoz gets back to your comment about people going to multiple places. So if they've done that, they probably got counted multiple times as people served.
Got it.
And so part of the goal here is to consolidate their experience as well, right? Let's go to one place, get all that you need there. So don't be surprised if you see that numbers served go down, but the food itself staying reasonably constant.
I appreciate the context. Sometimes top-line observations for data might be hard to discern, and so that is important to keep in mind moving forward. I have a question about the hubs themselves. I know when we last had this conversation earlier in the spring, there were questions about the operations, and not every hub in particular was conforming with what HHS was asking of them. Has that been corrected? Is there more compliance or buy-in with what we're asking?
Yeah, we have observed greater engagement. I know that one of the things that was pointed out in that earlier session was that contract amendment hadn't been signed, for example, and that has happened. As with anything, there's nothing perfect, and there are always things that, with any provider, we end up working through some things. And particularly in the case of, we've clearly got a whole shift of a model. I think an expectation that all of a sudden everything is perfect is probably an unreasonable expectation. But there is greater engagement, and we're very appreciative of that.
Appreciate that. And ultimately that conversation hinged on wanting to make sure that not only were the services being provided in a way that we saw fit, but also that taxpayer dollars were being utilized in the best way to make the most out of this situation. And so I'm glad that those engagements have proven fruitful, and that there's more uniformity and, if not continuity, amongst the services being offered throughout the county. Last question I have, and Ms. Buckland, you brought it up, it's about the contracts. I'm aware of at least one particular instance where there was a contract expectation that didn't bear fruit. And Mr. Campbell, I've been communicating with you in particular over the last 24, 48 hours, and wanted to get a better understanding about what those engagements earlier this year might have been, and how they translated into this funding request.
Trying to think for sure what's the context for the question, but
well,
in
so
terms of-
I'll be more clear about it. One organization in particular, So What Else, had reached out to me and said that there was an agreement, verbal or otherwise, about expectations for some of this appropriation, and they subsequently built it into their budget and provided some of those programs, and were surprised when they weren't included in this round. And so whether or not is that program, that organization, or others, just curious about the process.
So, I will need to follow up with Patrick about a couple of details in here, but in terms of an individual contract, that's something that would have needed to have been included in the appropriation and put on the non-competitive list. Like, there's a whole series of steps that are related to that, which aren't true. So we can't give someone a contract without those steps having been taken. I think that in general, the question of whether we welcome the engagement of any provider in the community within the wider network, I think the county's general interest is to have a wide network of providers that are well coordinated and working together. And as you had noted, there are a lot of different providers that are engaged with MANA and Capillary Food Bank and stuff like that. And I don't know to what extent this organization is already engaged. That's what the follow-up that I would need to do. But I certainly, from our perspective, I can't think of why we wouldn't welcome them as part of that wider network. The question of an individual contract, the pieces aren't in place for that. And so my working assumption would be that their engagement is as part of the wider network.
Sure. I appreciate this engagement, and I might clarify the words I use in referring to this as a contract. Are any of the organizations that are receiving funds through this special appropriation, do they have contracts in place, or what is?
The only contracts in place that are part of this are Capillary Food Bank and MANA. So all the rest of those providers in the wider, the 70 plus, the county does not have individual contracts with them. Their relationship is with those central organizations.
And how many different organizations do we expect to benefit from this appropriation?
I believe the number that's in the packet that ultimately we would have provided is 78 currently. Is that correct, Patrick?
That's correct. Yeah,
That's what
about
it says here.
78
Yeah.
organizations, from serving as small as like 20 families, all to serving over to thousands of families.
So when I use the word contract, it was misplaced in the context of this appropriation, right? And so they have other contracts. I visited them, have been on site, but apparently there was I'll use the word a miscommunication on what was going to be conveyed with this program, and as such, they had allocated funds to begin some of that work. And unless there's any other clarifying comments that you or Mr. Campbell would like to make about this, I would like to recommend to my colleagues that we move forward and try and correct the situation by adding $130,000 to this appropriation so that the organization So What Else could be made whole and continue providing the services that they have been doing for a very long time within this said appropriation.
Got it. So we got a motion. Is there a second? I'll second it for discussion. So let's discuss. Councilmember Rice.
So the reason why I didn't second is because this is completely new to me, and so I don't know what the relationship is between So What Else, all the other beneficiaries, and I'm not comfortable right now not having the information, understanding how we would allocate $130,000 for them, where our other food service providers are, where they feel they are in terms of fairness and equity, in terms of the distribution of funds. I mean, there's so many questions that I have that I can't support it at this time, just not based on, just based on the information. I just don't have the information to understand what that is in relation to the distribution of all the other funds, where folks are, all of that kind of stuff, and the contracts with Capillary Food Bank and MANA that are great partners of ours. I would ask that if this is to come before full council, maybe we wait till then and present it at full council when we've had a chance, asking staff to garner more information, working with HHS. So I'd ask the sponsor if maybe we wait till then. I don't want to necessarily take a negative vote on something like this, but really want to have the information ahead of time to understand what the lay of the land is. And if we can do that before this comes to full council on Tuesday, that would give us the opportunity to then make that amendment change at full council.
I appreciate that. Always thoughtful in how we allocate our funds. I do appreciate it. Mr. Campbell, because we've been in correspondence over the last day or two, is there any light that you can shed on the situation?
I mean, nothing more than really what Ms. Buckland said. It didn't make it through, it didn't make it into the budget last year. I mean, I am very familiar with the work they do. They do great work. Specifically, their work is around food rescue, and they are different than some of the other food rescue organizations, whereas, like Nourish Now has an emphasis around restaurants. They particularly do a lot of fresh produce, and they've been successful at engaging new partners, whereas not competing with existing partners.
Well, why don't we do that then? Let's give ourselves a little bit more time, longer one way, Mr. Vice President, and then we can discuss this when we appropriate it full council, and then possibly make an amendment then to add the $130,000 to the overall 8,150,000.
Okay.
So we'll defer that for now.
Thank you.
Got it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Okay. And by the way, Ms. Clemens Johnson's, congratulations. You recently got married, and I think I speak for the three of us when I say so far so great in each of our marriages. So, and I referred to you as
She's still smiling.
Ms.
so that's
Clemens, Ms. Clemens earlier, but you will now be Ms. Clemens Johnson. We are so thrilled for you and your family. So, congratulations. Was there anything else that we needed to discuss today before taking up a motion on the 8.1?
I think we just seek clarification on how DHHS intends to approach the food program over the remainder of FY23. The $4 million got us through the first quarter. There's a request for $8 million. If the expenditures match our current utilization, then we would essentially run out of funding in April. So just for
So
clarity.
the current funding is, just make sure the mic is on, but the current funding is scheduled to last through mid-November. So that's 4.5 months, a little over a third of the year. This particular appropriation, if you have a constant spend over the course of the year, the per month cost actually comes out to a slightly less than what we've asked for. So this actually just gives us a little bit of a cushion, because it's not the first quarter, it's actually the first 4.5 months. So you multiply that out. This actually does give us a little bit of cushion in case we see some variation in demand.
Got it. That's helpful. All right, I'll end with this thought. Ms. Buckland, you've done a lot of heavy lifting for like 3 straight years now. Unusually large amounts of heavy lifting. And I just want to publicly acknowledge your great work, your commitment and dedication, and your constant availability to myself and the central staff, and your responsiveness. We really appreciate your leadership during some unusually troubling times. Appreciate you.
I am definitely not the only one, and I do not stand alone. I have an incredible team in general and an incredible department that I get to serve, and so my pleasure.
Love it. Thank you. Oh, Ms. McGuire.
Just wanted to confirm before the committee adjourns that while we're pending more information on the additional funding, did the committee want to make a formal recommendation on the appropriation?
Yeah, I was gonna end on that. So without objection, I believe we'll move forward the $8,150,000, and then carve out some time to have some more discussion regarding the additional $130,000. Great. All right. With that, our HHS committee session is adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.